It's going to be a hard spot, but
I guess we
for support, you know,
It is, yes.
the outside.
But it is, I don't know, you put it on there, but I was originally.
That's
Yeah, $4 million project. I don't know, really. Okay.
No, the nice thing about that too is that they just.
Oh, trust me, I saw.
We saw that.
We saw, they're always. Well, what we're gonna. There's just no question that, oh yeah, we need it.
Hundreds of years. Yeah, it's too bad we didn't get it. Now I got rid of it. I was over. Yeah. I get up. Okay. That's there, and then up there. Things working. They're not working now?
You with the apparatus backpack.
I don't know where it went. I left it with them. Yeah, I know. There's a Jeff Bodner.
Not next year.
Used to be a volunteer here, it was having.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah. They did, I mean, we had a whole, we probably from the 60s.
Yeah.
So. Right up, everyone down. The earlier part in.
Not exactly. No, it's interesting to get, people in there. I like the activity. I've never been through an activity. Yeah, a lot of good ideas.
Taking pictures, you know. Let's say, you know, one thing we had that you go back down. So it's just whatever's easier to do that home. And here.
All right, folks, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. If you can find a seat at a table, that'd be great. Appreciate it. Okay. Well, we gotta find your seat. Anybody coming in over there? Anybody else from Really like questions. It is what it is. We're gonna go ahead and get started. If I can get your attention, please. Thank you. I can do the whistle, it's not pleasant. We'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, my name is Ian Gilbert. I am a partner with FFA Architecture and Interiors. As the name implies, we are the architecture and design team that's responsible for doing facilitation regarding a new public safety building. Part of that exercise, we will continue to have a series of community meetings, which we'll talk about here in a second, and then ultimately provide conceptual design services and then provide cost estimates that eventually go to council. So I want to talk through some of the activities we're going to do tonight, as well as some of the things that we did before at the previous community meeting that we had, and then we'll walk through a series of other activities. Before we do that, I'm going to ask for the team to introduce themselves.
So I'm John Pete, project manager with FFA Architecture. And Bill Lopez, architect with
Carolyn Wynn with FFA.
I'm Stuart Finney. I'm a structural engineer with KPFN.
Great. Now we're joined here today with by city staff who will also participate in answering some questions. Oh, sorry. Chris, go ahead.
Chris Master-Andrea, project manager with Bosch Group, owner representative.
Jeff, you're making your Jeff Caldwell, Bosch Group. All right. Is there anybody else I forgot? That's it? We're all good? Okay, yeah. All right, so this is community meeting number 2. Today we're going to review the community meeting number 1. Then we're gonna go look at the building program. The building program is basically a list of and size of spaces that would be in a new facility. And we want to walk through what each of those are, so you have a sense of what would potentially go in a new facility. And then we're gonna have Stuart give a presentation of the structural analysis of this building and this site and what the challenges of the facility are, and maybe also with the site as well. And then we're gonna do a site analysis of this site, which talks about kind of the environmental factors, the circulation factors, how we're responding out of here, for calls, things like that. And then we have a couple of activities that we wanna do. At each of the tables, you'll see an aerial plan. And we're gonna move some blocks around and see what it's like as a group or individual groups to see what it's like to fit a new facility on this site. Lastly, then, from that first meeting, we had a list of priorities that were generated, or a list of themes relative to designing a new facility. And so we want to go through an exercise that helps us prioritize which of those themes is the most important. So within that community process, in community meeting number 1, we went through a series of exercises. We had about 60 participants, 40 online activity responses, and 16 feedback surveys. Feedback surveys just help us understand how well these activities are working for people. Ultimately, we went through, we gave a presentation about what a community process looks like. Talk about what it means to design for public buildings, what goes into a police and fire station, a summary of the site, and then a cost and budget overview relative to what's happening in the marketplace when you're designing a new facility. Then we did 2 workshop activities. We did the community priorities, which I mentioned before. We sort of talked about different themes that might help apply to both the process of designing a community facility, but also the process or the outcome of what the new facility should look and feel like potentially. And then talked about some project goals. And so with that, will be a series of questions. These are a series of questions that we asked, and then here are some of the comments and the feedback that we received. So first one was, how do existing facilities support or inhibit police and fire services? There were people who felt that an aging facility puts firefighter safety at risk. There were some people who felt that building issues haven't hurt performance. And you're going to hear from us tonight talk about the challenges of this building and what we're doing as designers to address those challenges. And then the chiefs are also going to talk about what these facilities, how they work for them and what their challenges might be. And then the space is too small for operations and it's costly to upkeep the existing facility. What will a successful project look like to you? Right size to downtown facility reflecting Gerhardt's character, safe and effective workspace, affordable and modest, that serves our community's actual needs and stays on budget. How can the project team and city officials maintain your trust throughout the process? Must rebuild trust first. We understand it that there are some issues there that may be outside of this process. As architects and designers, we have control over this process, not things that have happened outside of it. So we're only going to address the things that impact the overall design relative to that. Be transparent about all costs. We have some comparable facilities that we're going to talk about, and we're going to be upfront with costs throughout the course of this process. You're going to know everything that we know as we go along. Address misinformation. This is the place to get the right information. We're going to tell you the things that we know about what the design of the facility is like. If you hear other things, bring it back to us. Let us help you address it. In addition to that, the city is going to post a series of frequently asked questions and the answers to those things that come out of this process on the website where other people can reference it, and you can point to it in your social media feeds. Ensure all citizens, not just meeting attendees, are heard. We will do our best to do outreach. You're a unique community and that you have a lot of people who have second or third homes here. Getting outreach or connecting to them, it's a little bit more challenging when they're not here. We'll need your help in doing that. So encourage your neighbors to attend as much as you can. And then obviously communication is key.
One thing I'll add
Yes,
is,
just with outreach and is we will have an online survey, especially with the priorities activities. So the activities you hear today will be open a week later, so you can let your neighbors and residents know that even though they weren't able to participate tonight, they'll be able to participate online a week after the event.
Great, thanks, John, appreciate that. So imagine it's opening day, what are people saying about the new facility? The community came together to make it happen. It's expensive and we're concerned taxes will increase. So this is something we understand that we have to address, is to keep the cost down and make sure that it feels sort of cost appropriate. Now, first responders have a safe place to work and it fits our town. Imagine it's your first time coming to the new building as a resident, what are you most proud of? Police and firefighters can safely do their job. It's built within cost. Design reflects community feedback. It's well equipped and attractive, and we supported our firefighters and police. There we go. Has the building improved your customer service experience? It feels inviting. Some people felt that it would not make a huge public impact. Again, the chiefs are gonna address how they feel to impact their services. And everything is in one place and it's efficient. In 50 years, what decisions made today would be residents be grateful for? A facility that's durable, has a flexibility of function and it serves everyone. All right, so from that exercise, we pulled the following themes. These are the themes that we're going to ask you to prioritize at the end of as the last activity today. So a facility that's practical, simple, and utilitarian, that's functional, resilient, has security and safety, is responsive and available, dependable and solid, transparent, open and honest, and is community focused. So have those in the back of your mind as we get to the other activities at the end of the night. So this is today's meeting, where we're going to kind of go through some exercises about what fits on site. We're going to give some site updates, the structural update, talk about just briefly the comparable facilities that we've gathered, and the workshop activities. After this event will be community meeting number 3, and that's on February 11th. Here we're going to do an update to any of the program that we changed, have a site update relative to the site analysis. Cost review of the development options that we as a group sort of worked through today, and then review options and sort of make a selection about which of the options we want to move forward and take to council. As well as exercise where we talk about the character and quality of the facility. What does it look like? What does it feel like? How does it fit with Gerhard? And then meeting number 4, and John, correct me if I get any of this wrong. This is where we'll have floor plans, renderings, and costs, so you have a sense of ultimately what this project will amount to.
Yeah, I think the thing that I'll quickly add is we're gonna move blocks around today. Today's goal is to get as many development ideas as we can for the property. The next meeting, as Ian mentioned, we're gonna have all those options and we're gonna find the top 2 that best reflect your values and goals here in Gerhard. And then we're gonna come back at meeting number 4 with detailed cost estimates, concept plans, floor plans for both of those options. So you can really kind of weigh those decisions for a final recommendation that comes out of this process.
To the building program review. Building program is to us what is the spaces in the building, and before we dive into that, we'd like to talk about the users, your essential teams that are going to be occupying this building. Fire chief and police chief will be jumping in and explaining a little bit more about their essential teams and the services they provide to your community.
So before we go on, one thing to add to this is we don't just call the firefighters here volunteer firefighters. What they are is professional firefighters. When they go to the incident, whether it's a car crash or a structure that's burning, or even you not feeling well at home, the incident's not like, oh, you're a volunteer firefighter, I'm gonna change, or I'm gonna take it easy on you or anything. It's gonna be the exact same incident if it was a Portland or Seattle firefighter, it doesn't care. We have the exact same training, exact same certification, as every single one of them. So it may say volunteer firefighters, but every firefighter that's here has state certifications through NFPA and DPSST for everything we do.
And looking at the police department, we operate with 3 officers. You know, that's not a lot, and so we're carrying the load of many people. And we look at a growing population, right? I mean, 20-something% over the last few years. Tourism, we pride ourselves on being a residential community. We still have tourism. Our neighbors are tourists. People are coming here. So we need to build for the future. And what that means is we're gonna need additional police staffing. We're gonna need support staffing. Well, we can be creative and try to do a reserve program, where we keep that cost down. Either way, we need to build for the future, which means we need more space. There's just no room for that. There's no room for growth.
And so, the volunteer makeup of the firefighters, there's a mix from teens to 60s. So it's a wide range across for age. For their volunteer firefighting experience, we have a big group of those with experience from 0 to 2 years, and then 6 to 10, even up to 20+. So we have a lot of experience within the volunteers. And then for volunteer residency, where they're coming from, a lot of them actually live in Deer Heart or within the district and close by, and there's only 2 out of 30 that live outside of the district and county.
So those last 3 slides are active, current for what we have right now. We have about 30 firefighters, professional firefighters on the roster, and that's the breakdown currently of the age range, the years of experience, and where they reside. And there is 2 currently out of county, out of district. They, one of them's, they're kind of both from the Portland area. What happens, they have friends and staff, family members in the area, they'll stay with them. And while they're here for a long weekend, what have you, they're on team with us, and so they respond to calls with us in there. And I know we'll get into dorm rooms and stuff later, but that would be one that would help that situation even more. That's what a lot of other agencies are doing. They're bringing in other full-time firefighters to come in while they're here staying at the coast, and they can respond to calls back.
You maybe address why a volunteer firefighter would come all the way to Gerhart from Portland to participate out here?
Because there's the beach.
What is that?
There's a lot of firefighters love what they do, whether it's career or volunteer. There's a fire department on the East Coast that's 100% staff, 100% volunteer staff with career firefighters. So all those people are career firefighters somewhere else, whether in New York or what have you, and they go there and pull shifts at the volunteer house, just to run calls. I think it's the busiest fire department in the nation. With that, I'm getting a nod from Ed in the corner. So firefighters love what they do, and they love to be active in what they're doing. And if they're in their downtime, they like to come out and still do the same thing. What do they want to do?
And then the slide shows the calls that were received from both the PD and the fire in 2024. And
Those are 2023 stats. I haven't gotten on this last year.
Mine are 2024.
He had more time on his hands.
Sure, yeah, more time. And look at this, this is 595 case files, that was, I can't remember the number, it was 170 something, 41% increase last year in case files. And look, we added another officer, officers are proactive. You know, we want our officers to be proactive. I want our officers out on the street trying to figure things out, right? And so case files do go up a little bit because of that. But a lot of this is the population, a lot of this is tourism, hasn't stopped really in September, October, now November, it's really into the winter. So we have a lot of stuff going on, and these 694 log entries are just things that we didn't take a case on, they're just actionable items where an officer got into something or dispatched to something. So this is a big increase. And I don't see that going down, y'all. I don't see that going down. It's gonna go up, so.
What's a service call for the fire department?
Anytime we're called out for them, so when we get a call, our tones go off and then firefighters come here and we go out. So we had, for 2023, 759 essentially 911 calls that we went to. This last year, we were at
759 of this year.
759 was this last year. And so one of those is I know last time we kind of, this whole go around, we talked about ISO ratings a lot. Our last ISO grading is on our website, for the last time we were graded. It comes about every 10 to 12 years, we get regraded. And they look at multiple things of your calls, what type of calls you go to, your type of training you have, the type of, certifications and equipment you have. Just to kind of give you, help describe that, it's on a scale of 1 to 10. Most fire departments nationwide are at a 5. Earhart Fire is at a 3. Napa Fire is at a 4. They have some outlining rural fire districts that were at an 8. When Napa merged to what they are now, all those other ones that were an 8 became a 4 as well. And they had people go to them and say, thank you for merging. I went from $800 insurance premiums to $400 insurance premiums. So ISO does matter. It matters for homeowners insurance and commercial properties. And our last grading breakdown is on our website with our last end of year reports.
And what does ISO stand for?
Insurance, yes,
Insurance Services Office.
that's it.
And they're nationally rating every fire department for everyone's homeowners insurance and commercial businesses. So it affects every aspect of building.
There's every details as far as how far is your house away from a fire station, how far is your house from a fire hydrant, how many volunteers or how many firefighters show up, what's their certification levels, what equipment, what training they have. There's everything that goes into it, and everything goes in a different category, different point system. And that grading is posted on our website.
And a lower score is better than a higher.
Correct, it's like golfing.
Right.
10, ISO class 10 is unprotected. You can't get homeowners insurance.
And just real quick to hit on this again, this is with 3 people and each one of these has something associated with it, whether it be evidence, paperwork. There's some type of file or something that we have to deal with that stacks up. And so with a limited amount of space, we're really running out of space to keep up with these kind of things. And also, this does not reflect county. As many of you know, county has a contract with us to cover when we cannot work because we're not robots. We need a night off and some time with our family. So that does not reflect that either. So there's even more.
Did you have a question?
Yes, Chief, thanks for the data. Can you tell us on the fire side and on the police side, what percentage of those calls are from within inside the city of Gerhart versus in other parts of the area that we speak support or responsible?
Yeah, so if there was another one of me, 2023's report and 2024's report would be out by now. Because we prep for meetings like this and other stuff, I'm still working on those. I gave those to, where's Dana at? 2023's, I did do those 3, so I was able to break down how many calls was in the city limits, how many's in the district, and how many times we sent out auto mutual aid for 2023.
It was the breakdown was about half and half.
Half the calls are
Roughly half the
inside the
calls are in
city.
the city. Another, I would say, 278 of the calls were in the fire district.
Mhm.
which
And
also-
100 was A.
And 100 was mutual aid.
I would say on this, this is probably 70% ours and the rest could be assisted in their agency, whether it's county or seaside. We work together that way, especially where there's only a couple officers working there, one officer here, counties on the other side of the county, we gotta help each other. On log interest, I'd say it's probably the exact same. That's why I figure 70% of that. I don't know that to be exact, so not the gospel, but.
Roughly half the fire calls and 70% of the police.
Right. Yeah.
So the next part, we'll start getting into the building size, and what our process was is we went with all the departments and went through kind of programming exercises where we really focused on their operational needs. And I just want to give props to the departments because, at every meeting, it was refinement and cutting and bringing down. So we went in and here's kind of all the operational ways you can approach kind of sizing and all the spaces you need. And each meeting was cutting, refinement, kind of finding as many efficiencies as possible. So the program we're going to present today is really kind of the core efficiencies that we've been able to break down with the departments on site. And the 2 floor plans I showed at the last meeting, so the Lafayette Fire Station, the Milton Freewater Police Department, and I do want to highlight, you're in a unique position having these departments on site here because there's so many shared efficiencies you can that don't need to be duplicated between the areas. So the day room, kitchen, break room, right, that can be shared between all the departments. The public lobby, all your public interface, can be shared, and then incident command, the responses, lockers, classroom multipurpose, all of those can be worked with each department to be able to share as much of that as possible. And then what you're not gonna see today too is there's a lot of programs that got cut out. So there's no temporary holding cells that are planned for the project, right? There's efficiencies with the jail in close proximity here. You're not gonna see a large evidence storage area. We really kind of reduced and worked to bring that footprint as close down as possible. There's no dispatch, there's not a lot of gear. There's a take-home policy where they'll take home the vehicle, so they don't, not a lot of gear and storage on site. So in comparison to other police and fire facilities, there's a lot of spaces we've kind of brought down that we're gonna show today.
And then floor plan is not what we're proposing.
Oh, yes, clarifying. This is just, we had this at the last meeting as just examples, but this is not at all the floor plan. So today we're talking high level spaces, and the floor plans will be coming up at meeting number 4. Good point. So this is kind of what we're talking about today, and this is what we call the building program, but really it's just a list of spaces. And as architects, we like to show these graphically so that you get a sense of the size comparison between the different spaces. So for example, this box here is representing the apparatus bay, and we're showing the length and width, so 45 feet deep, and basically the bay layout. But it's just the size and room that we're proposing they need for the function. So that's when we go through and kind of show each of these boxes, that's what we're showing today is kind of the building program that just represents the spaces that are planned for the building. And so we're right here in the middle of Gerhardt, and then this is the existing site. And this is an overlay just to help people orient. So when we say apparatus bay, that's the bay we're in where the engines and rigs and everything are stored. So we're right here in the apparatus bay. Right over there is kind of a true multi-purpose classroom, day room, kitchen space. And then behind us on this site is Public Works. So Public Works actually has some shop office space and then a pole barn storage building back on the back of the site. So I will pause there and just as one of the developments on this property, as we move boxes around and talk about it, Public Works is going to be part of that variable on the site. How do we think about them long-term and how do we support them as a department? And then over in the city hall side, there's the city hall, city council, police department, and then fire station offices. So I'm going to run through,
Is there an option to move Public Works on site somewhere else with their buildings?
I don't think there's one, I guess you want to address that?
Well, sure, there's some ideas about potentially in the future. You know, we do have a piece of property that's next to City Hall. That's over there, and then there's another piece of property owned by Pacific Power that we would like to have. But that depends on how this community process goes. Otherwise, we're land poor, we don't have anything else. We've tried looking at a few other pieces of property, quite expensive, it would add quite a bit, so far we're trying to fit it all here. But if it doesn't work out, then we'll have to figure out some other space.
That's good. And that will, the Public Works is one of the boxes that we'll start to move around and talk about on the site. And then as far as challenges go, we'll run through kind of the different pieces of the building. So this is a zoomed in floor plan of the fire department, and we're here in the apparatus bay. And I think what we want to highlight, the engines and rigs are actually outside, but they barely fit in here when they're all here, and they have to be custom ordered, which is a really expensive cost because this building was built all the way back in like the 1950s, and it was just not sized for modern engines.
Yeah, so OSHA and NFPA standards say you're supposed to have 4 feet walked around of your apparatus facing, and then even that depicts the type of doors if they roll up or if they fold open, the different spacing you're supposed to have around each thing. For us to custom order an apparatus for us, it'll add at least 10% more cost because it has to go back to the engineer to be re-engineered. So that's the minimum 10% cost on top of an $800,000 to $1 million fire apparatus, which is what they're costing today. If we're to buy a demo version that they're on the showroom, that's around $670,000. but you have to custom build it to fit in here. There's only so much customing you can do. Some places they buy rolling chassis and you can't make the wheelbase shorter or anything like that. Some places do build them on site, but there's still certain specs they can only go to.
So step one is just right sizing the apparatus base, so still keeping 4 bays, but just meeting them, the OSHA and FBA requirements, and then meeting the requirements of the current fleet you currently have of engines. And then the second challenge is that there's just so much gear just stored in here that isn't ideal. So this SCBA is all the air tanks and everything. When this thing is turned on, it is crazy loud. This should be in an isolated room, not in the apparatus bay. And all the hoses are stored out just on the edges. They're behind our boards, but they're stored horizontally. Ideally, you want to actually drive these vertically as far as best practices go. And then their shop space, I mean, it's just all kind of fit in all the nooks and crannies. So we're proposing that maybe there's a work bay that houses this equipment, so it's not tucked all in the apparatus bay. So the SCBA with their shop with there. The pro with this is you give plans for future flexibility. We want to be thinking long-term with this building and provide flexibility for some additional fleet. And then a hose tower, the idea with the hose tower is that you potentially are going 2 stories when we get to the option. So you're gonna need by code 2 exit stairs. And so this can serve as an exit stair. It can serve as the vertical drying for the hoses, and there's also training opportunities with it. So there's a lot of advantages you're getting by doing a hose tower.
And then with that, the winter storm we had of 2023, I had to park an apparatus outside so I could park certain ones inside so we could respond. Within about 10 minutes, our windshields were freezing over, and it would take at least that to scrape and defrost. When I parked that apparatus outside, because I didn't have any else place to put it, the plumbing broke and that apparatus was out of service for 5 months, and we had to pay to fix it. And it was we couldn't take it to a fire. You couldn't fill it full of water because it would instantly just drain right out because the plumbing spread apart and broke from the ice, water freezing and expanding.
Yeah,
So having this would have solved that.
definitely. And then firefighter wellness is definitely like a top priority, and there's not a lot of spaces in the process to support that. So I'll let the chief talk a little bit.
So the skin is your biggest organ in your body. And the gear we have does its best to protect us from that, but it doesn't do 100% good job. One of the worst things you can do for gear is store it just like we have it, because then it gets coated with all the carcinogens from the diesel exhaust and everything from there. It alone doesn't protect us 100% when we're inside a fire, when we're crawling under a vehicle, and whether there's oils and fluids coming around, they still get into our skin and we absorb those. And the same is with medical calls or anything else we go to. We've all, chief as well, a bunch of my other firefighters have had stuff on us, bodily stuff, some biohazard and what have you. We have to take those in our vehicles, all the firefighters in their family vehicles, and they have to take them to their family homes. Myself, I've had to go in my garage and strip in my garage to try to help contain it and keep it in there, to then go in my house and shower in there. All of it's being sucked inside of us and being absorbed to us. The fire gear, it helps keep some of the heat off, but it also raises your body temperature because it's thick. And that in turn raises your core temperature and makes you more susceptible to illnesses and diseases. All the carcinogens, they hold on. They say one of the worst things you can do is storm just like we have, because it deteriorates some more from there.
Yeah, so we're basically planning a turnout locker room, which is very typical of what we see in other stations where they're in an enclosed space protected. We have an EMS supply room for all the medical supplies that are going out, having that in a locked, secure room. And then the bottom ones are all about that decon sequence, returning from a call, having space to wash and clean the body boards, basically clean up after events, having a dirty kind of laundry janitor's closet, as well as a restroom right off the base, so you don't have to go through the station after you're getting cleaned up, returning from a call. And then lastly on fire, the offices, so this floor plan jumps over, so this is a floor plan of City Hall, so the offices are right up, here, and there's just one big shared office right now. Back, perfect. As well as, this is when we'll talk about the bunk rooms, that there's no space on here for emergency disaster. You want actually firefighters on site responding, because the volume of calls they're getting in an emergency and response is very high. So having them on site and the ability to have the bunk rooms to support that is very important. As well as we've seen other districts, when they put in the bunk rooms, they've improved their volunteer rates by being able to support out-of-district volunteers and actually expanded the program and bunk rooms even in volunteer facilities.
And that was in relation to, like I said earlier, the out-of-district volunteers that'll come and run calls with us. And also there's a work to rest ratio we're supposed to follow, which is 2 to 1. In the last winter storm we had 3-4 weeks ago now, myself and a bunch of other firefighters, we had a 15-hour shift, and then we had about an hour-and-a-half gap in a 17-hour shift right after that. Just recently happened, so we can't say this stuff doesn't happen here. So having those bunk rooms, they'll be able to crash in for a little bit and still able to respond or take shifts and what have you. A lot of them went home because they either had to work the next day or they're tired, and once they went home, we lost them for the rest of that shift for the next time.
How many people are per bunk room, or is that 2 people per bunk room?
It just depends on layout, what you put in there. If we had to, in EOC purposes, emergencies, you could fit 2 bunks in there.
But ideally, I mean, this was one, we started at 6 and really refined it down to 4. And I think 4 is the right, like an engine size, right, is normally you have 3 to 4 people rolling out on an engine, right?
On one apparatus.
Right, so having that many, that's your immediate first response, that you can get 1 engine out the door when that 911 call comes in.
Josh, I think at one time you were also interested in bunk, space for maybe interns. And you were leveraging like students up at Clatsop and such as that.
Like this guy.
Like one of our interns right there.
There you go.
He currently lives in Seaside. Now it's North Seaside, on this far end, but if we had bunk rooms, he would reside here. So yes, and we currently have 2 interns. One does live just a couple blocks that way, but Chance does live a few blocks south of here.
And this is one of the reasons I like doing these as graphic programs, because you can see all the programs in relationship to each other. And the bunk rooms are pretty small footprint, but have a pretty big impact to kind of operations and the flow. And so jumping to the police side, I think it's pretty, so if you have, it's a very small existing space where every officer is operating out of one single office, which is a big challenge.
Yeah, so okay, so this is actually the police department, this is our office, the reason we are all 3 in this one little small space is because we have CJIS requirements, which stands for Criminal Justice Information System. So we can't let people that aren't cleared, that don't have clearance, right, to see confidential information. That could be anything from a major case to your driving record. Okay, you don't want someone to see that stuff, so we have to keep that in a separate area. So that really minimizes our floor space. We would have it out here, but people do walk through here. As this being the fire department's office, they're not CJIS cleared, so we can't have our stuff out there. And you were gonna show this.
Oh, yeah. So basically, we're planning an office for the police chief and then a squad room, basically for an officer work area.
And the police chief having a separate office is important too for records retention. It's not good for other officers to see personnel records, right? And so, or having that private conversation with an employee, right, or that needs to have that sit down with us, to me or to them. They need that confidentiality, and so you can't really do that when you're sharing an office with other people.
Definitely. And then the other side of law enforcement is just all the gear that goes, so there's so much gear for patrol officers as well as the evidence storage and things we've talked about. And this is one where we've really kind of pared back on the police side. It's a single room for all the equipment and weapons maintenance. And then we have the dedicated space for long-term evidence storage, evidence refrigeration, and the processing space, but that is a very pared down footprint from what we typically see. And then we'll run through public works, just because with this site, as we move the blocks around and talk about it, there are some challenges with public works that could be addressed through this process. So the first is, if you look behind here, there's a lot of high value equipment for the city, the vectors and backhoes and stuff that isn't fully protected out there. So getting that indoors, just like the engines, and protected long-term is just protecting the city's investment. There's also a lot of storage, all the water parts, all the elements that go into the public works that they need to order and have on site to be able to repair the systems and respond. There's just not enough space back there now. So they need storage for those parts as well as workspace, like a welding bay where they can be actually working on them. And then the last part is just, they don't even have any office space right now. If you were to go back there, it's just an open warehouse where all their computers and elements are. So giving them actual workstations, and the director not even having an office, but just even having a flex office that could be that space to meet in, just giving them office space is an important component when thinking of public works. And then, so that's like the dedicated, department spaces. Next is the public access and multi-purpose spaces we're planning, and these are the ones that are shared by all three departments, so we're getting a lot of efficiency by that, synergy, having them all on one site. And from the lobby side, it'll be a single lobby for police and fire, so you walk in and there's a single, lobby, vestibule, and kind of reception for police and fire. And then the big thing with police is having that report taking room. So report taking, and when you come in and talk to the officer, those conversations don't have to be out in the public or out in earshot of anyone. You can actually talk with an officer in a report taking room. It's been a big community benefit we've seen in projects. And you want to talk a little bit about the classrooms?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of talk about training center, regional training staff and training room. I'm gonna see if I can explain this super simple. High school classroom. Okay, that's what it is, high school classroom. It's kind of a cliche term, but you can't train too much for a job that can kill you. And every single one of these, except for DC and myself, they're volunteers. They're giving a service to you guys at the same time risking their lives while doing that. And all we're asking for is just a classroom. It's not a big training center, not a big training thing, not a regional thing. This is for us. We're supposed to take care of our own. It's not Seaside's job to take care of us. Not Camp Riley's job to take care of us. And I wrote a big letter a year and a half ago of why we can't use Camp Riley. If you want that, I can send that back out to you. It's just not an option with that. There is OSHA requirements for initial certification and yearly stuff. There's 17 classes every single one of us has to take every single year, just for OSHA requirements. We have to take them, otherwise they can't be active firefighters. For firefighter 1 certification, it takes 78.5 classroom hours. That includes 21 separate topics. To go to the next step, firefighter 2 is an additional 45 classroom hours
Per year.
for just the initial certification. Per year, depending on your different tracks, it takes 123, 125 hours every 2 years to recertify. And different tracks, so if you're medical, you have to have different hours and different things depending on your medical level certification. You have to have different hours if you're an instructor, if you're teaching. There's all sorts of different pathways you have to additionally through that. And through the ISO stuff we mentioned earlier, and for all of our grant fulfilling purposes, they want you at a firefighter 2 certification level. So they want you to go to that further step from there. Every single certification we have, we submit to Salem for and get certified. And we even get audited every 3 years by our DLO, the district liaison officer, to make sure we have all our documentation there and everything's in order. We're training how we're supposed to. We're certified to train these certain things. And that's just the firefighter 1, firefighter 2 cert. There's some of our firefighters here who have 20+ certifications. You have to have your driver's cert, your apparatus operator cert. You have to have your hazmat awareness and hazmat IC, and I can go, I'll send these guys a list of about 45 different certifications. And that's just fire side. Medical side is a completely different other one. You have to have hundreds and hundreds of hours of training, classroom. For every certification, there's kind of 4 different elements that we have to go through. There's the classroom portion. We have to teach you, we have to sit down and learn it. And there's the practical portion we go through, which is hands-on, and that's typically, we give you a task book. And in that task book, it could be 20 pages, and each page, there's 10 different things in it, whether it's general knowledge, like explain this situation to me, what would you do this? Or it could be raise the ladder against the ref and show me how you would do it, which is like what the hose tower and things would come into play. And then the 4th step to that is your task performance evaluation, which is we take 4 to 6 of those things from the task book. You do them in front of one of our officers or senior firefighters. And once you pass those, then we send that packet in to Salem DPSST for certification. So there's things we have to do on our own. We can't rely on somebody else to do them. We have to do them yearly. And the slides at the very beginning, that kind of shows our retention of where we're at with years of service and experience. Part of it's always revolving. Some people will come and they'll go. We're always training new people, always. Some departments don't have the capacity to do it, like Seaside Fire. I think only twice a year they accept new volunteers. just because of how much time and how much effort and administration stuff it takes. Departments like us in Cannon Beach, we accept them all year long because I'm not gonna turn someone away, they wanna come in and help. Difference between us and Cannon Beach has 13+ full-time people, plus part-timers, plus interns and volunteers do the job that DC and myself do. And they were 11 calls ahead of us last year.
And so in our experience, it's a very typical space that goes into almost every public safety center that we do. And it's just a classroom that serves a multitude of kind of multi-purpose for kind of, in addition to fire, kind of all the different departments on it.
No one trains like a firefighter, but, police are close.
And then this one got really small because of all those shared efficiencies. So this is the shared department spaces. So we have small bank of lockers, shower changing room. The wellness room is a nursing mom's room that's actually required by the building code. So that's a building code requirement. You have your kind of mud room entry to the building, and then a single kitchen day room that is going to serve all the employees operating out of the building. And then these spaces are the spaces that people normally don't see, but go into them. So all your electrical, fire department, sprinkler system connections, your MDF and IDF are all the IT rooms, server racks that go into the building, janitor closets, regular restrooms. And then we show stairs as two because they actually square footage take up a first floor and a second floor. But this would represent a single stair that we're getting the other exit stair from that hose tower. So we were able to cut down on square footage there. Building codes requires an elevator. So we have the footprint for the first floor and the second floor, but that would represent one elevator. And then we have a single supply storage. And then lastly, when we get to moving the blocks around on site, you have to think through parking. So we have what we call the fleet parking, which is just the vehicles for volunteers, police officer vehicles, public works vehicles that need to be parked on site. And then one thing that's important is a fire apparatus apron. So you see fire department set back from the street because the engine has to fully pull out and be visible before it can get on the street. So there needs to be a 40-foot apron to be able to pull the engine all the way out of the bay and not have it go on the street. So that's what we call a fire apparatus apron that needs to be in front of the bay. And then you are all on septic out here, so we have to factor in the drain fields and those on site. And so this is the summary of everything. So basically we summarize all the program we went through. And then so the subnet area for the police or for the public safety building is 12,254 square feet. And then the public works components are the 3,864. And then you have to factor in a circulation factor, which is basically when we get to floor planning, we have to circulate around between the spaces. So that's just the hallway space to connect everything, as well as the thickness of walls, columns that go into the layout. So that gets us to the total grossing factor for the public safety building of 14,949, and then for the public works components, 4,250. So that was a lot of information, but we wanted to take the time so you really understood all the elements that are going in and the thought process behind them, because I do want to commend again every meeting we had with them, the thought was reduce, cut, find as much efficiency as we can in this program so that it's truly viable. Any questions? Yeah.
I think from what you talked about earlier, that's on 2 floors. I'm wondering, what's the building footprint, if you think you need? 15,000 feet goes on 2 different floors, right?
Yes, that's a great, so there's so many variables with that of how they stack. There is the apparatus bay, right? So the engines obviously have to be on the first floor. And then the public works, they need to get their vehicles in and out, that has to be on the first floor. A lot of the other stuff can stack. So a lot of the living admin spaces. Exactly. So we're actually going to pull out boxes in a second and actually get to lay this stuff out. And I think that's what's unique about this site is we can stack things pretty successfully, but the size of that footprint, there's so many variables that we don't know yet.
And just through that process, as we move forward and you hear from stewards or structural comments and things like that, the soils here are not great. So the more condensed we can keep it. So the more, not that we would necessarily go through stories, that's not really an option, but we wanna keep the building, the footprint as compact as we can to minimize foundation costs.
Yeah,
What about just the size of the lot? Roughly? On the side.
you want to put up your head, Phil?
Again,
Yeah, so it's the area in white, right?
we'll do some digging and get that.
Yeah, we'll pull a scale out and do some measuring. We have that information, just not off the top of our head. Yeah,
So we've gotten the geological okay to build on this site now?
yeah, we've done an analysis, so we've done borings, which basically go down into the soil and figure out the different levels and the stratification of the soil and what's down there. And we do, after we go through the Q and A, I'm gonna turn it over to Stuart to actually talk through the existing building, the structural challenges in the soil. But yeah, we did the boring, so we got a section of all the different layers that are below this building, so we can build here.
Good, that's good.
The site's about 45,000 square feet. That includes City Hall and the septic.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. That, I'll turn it over to you, sure.
Okay, so we looked at the structure for kind of seismic performance and how it might perform in a tsunami as well. So just a little bit of background on the existing structure. So, you know, the original kind of 1950s era building, it was built really long before there was kind of a solid understanding of the seismic hazard here in Oregon. So really like the Oregon kind of engineering and building code community really only started to recognize and take seriously seismic design in kind of the mid to late 1990s. So this was 30 to 40 years before that. So what that means is, you know, while the building has stood just fine for, you know, 60, 70 years, it doesn't have the kind of parts and pieces that stitch together a modern building and make it kind of stand up in an earthquake. So, you know, we did some basic analysis on the building. So what we find is that most of the walls are stressed in plane under a code level event. So what that means is we can see damage kind of similar to these top two images here, where the walls crack. So this construction type here is very similar to this building. It's kind of masonry block walls. You can, you know, see them kind of visible here. Also, like I said a minute ago, the building isn't likely connected together the way we would with a modern building. So what we could see is the walls kind of pull away from the roof because they're just not tied together adequately, which means that the roof loses its gravity support and there's a potential that the roof can come down. There was a question earlier about the geological hazard. So, you know, we're close to the beach here, obviously. So there's a lot of sand in the soil. And we're close to the ocean, so there's a relatively high water table. So what that means is the subgrade below this building is susceptible to what we call liquefaction, which is kind of a fancy way of saying that the soil underneath could kind of turn into quicksand, where it loses its gravity support. And so the building sinks and potentially tilts. And what that means is the building it was never designed to move like that. It was designed to kind of stay in one place. So, you know, that can kind of destabilize the foundations. We also have the potential for lateral spread, which is where the soil doesn't just kind of lower or sink down, but it actually spreads out. So again, it kind of tries to pull the building apart. So, you know, it's a significant deficiency in a building that's 70 plus years old. You know, what that means really between the, you know, between the subgrade hazard, the structural hazards, even in a moderate earthquake, there's a significant risk to life safety for occupants of this building. And then certainly after a moderate or major earthquake, it's really unlikely that anybody could come back in and occupy and actually operate out of this building. So what do we do to address that with existing buildings? Well, typically we look at a seismic retrofit. So, you know, looking at some kind of basic seismic retrofit costs for this building, It could easily be kind of 50% of the cost of just a new structure. So I'm talking structural costs now, not necessarily the finishes. The reason for that is, we'd essentially be stitching the building back together from a seismic perspective, installing all those connections that we would regularly put in new construction. Additionally, while it may be cheaper to retrofit a building, this building's in the kind of latter half of its anticipated service life. I mean, you only have to kind of go outside and see the paint peeling and the bricks starting to kind of erode away. We're near the coast, so it's a more aggressive climate on structures. It's a marine environment, so buildings typically don't last as long. The scope of the retrofit, specifically in this building, it's actually very similar to building a new building. We're basically gonna have to improve the ground underneath the building, so we remove that liquefaction risk. There are new foundations that support the building and the seismic loads. There are new walls internally to take the seismic loads, and then a reframing of the roof. So you basically build foundations, walls and a roof, which is essentially a new structure. And then, if you think about how you build a building, normally you build, like I just said, foundations, walls, roof, and then you put everything inside the building. So to retrofit a building, we're kind of doing that in reverse. We have to get everything out of the building. So the mechanical systems, electrical, plumbing, the finishes, that all has to get out of the way so that we can tie the building back together. And then all that stuff comes back in. So there's a lot of inefficiency to retrofit work, especially on a building of this size.
In that picture, the front of the building was torn off in the last windstorm.
Yeah.
So that's what happened here. And the rafter tails and that, you can see the dark spots are all rotted out. So that's the whole roof.
So that's the seismic risk. We also have a tsunami risk here, unfortunately at the coast. So what this is here is it's kind of a plot of the existing grade, which is the black line. So that's the topography. So the kind of beach and the ocean is here, and then you're kind of moving inland as you go from left to right. The yellow dot here is the building location, so that's where we are right now. And then the blue line is the modeled water elevation in a tsunami. So that comes 20 to 30 minutes after the major earthquake. So what we see here is about 20 feet of inundation with a water flow 19 miles per hour coming obviously in from the ocean. So I described a minute ago the kind of challenges and the impractical nature of retrofitting the building for an earthquake. The tsunami forces with the water pushing on the building, that's probably 4 or 5 times more force on the building, plus the buoyancy that comes with it because it tries to kind of lift the building as well. So while it's not practical to retrofit the building, it's pretty much impossible to retrofit for a tsunami. So that's kind of another thing to weigh. So that's all I have for the structural assessment.
All right, so just for sake of time, because we want to get to the next 2 activities, I'm going to quickly go through some site analysis that we've done preliminarily. So we covered kind of the vicinity map where we're currently located, just right off Pacific Way. These are the main arterial roads, and the creek over to the west. We're about 3/4 of a mile away from Highway 1. So the direct site circulation, wanted to talk about that, Pacific Way, Cottage, and First being the surrounding streets, and then we have a ridge path over on the east side. The buildings were kind of described before, but the arrows are indicating where there's currently site access. There's about 3-foot grade difference connecting to the First Street from the north side of the property. And overall, it's a pretty flat site with the northeast, northwest, and southeast. Southwest, sort of raising an elevation a few feet. And then we have Drip Haven over to the right. This is probably gonna work. It's not supposed to look this blurry, but this just indicates that we looked at the wind, the prevailing winds from the winter and summer, and the temperature, as well as just that it's a heat dominated building just because of the cool climate here. So we want to take advantage of the orientation of the building. We've also looked at the sun orientation and how it's impacted the site. So as we get into this next exercise and we're looking at where the building is located, a east-west orientation, where you're getting a lot of southern exposure is more advantageous for that solar heat gain. And with that, I think we can.
Okay, so, someone made a comment earlier today that since kindergarten, everybody likes to play with blocks, so we're gonna ask you to tap into your inner kindergarten self. The task today is that we have a series of wood blocks that represent a lot of the program pieces that we talked about today. Most of them sort of consolidated together. What we're gonna ask you to do is groups, is to start to move those blocks around on the site and try to position the building where you think it might best be appropriate. Each of us will be sort of at a table to help sort of guide that conversation. And we'll be taking notes and taking pictures of the things that you come up with as a group. Now, there are some rules that everyone has to follow. One is that as much as possible, we need this building to stay in place while we're building a new building. Chief doesn't have a spot to put the apparatus anyplace else in the city, and it can't sit outside. And if the construction process is gonna last between 12 and 14 months, we need a place to keep that apparatus, and the best place to keep it is right here. Or if there was a way to use public works space, which might be big enough to be able to staff it or to put it in there. The second thing is if you look at the white area in front of you, that is the area that the city owns currently. The inside that big dash line, there's a lighter dash line. Those are the building setbacks. The buildings can't cross that light dash line. They have to sort of stay within. The other thing is that there are adjacent properties that the city has contemplated purchasing, particularly the one to the east. But you can't put a building on the ridge trail. So that can't be placed. You can't straddle that, get over to that piece of property. Each of the blocks have colors on them to help you understand which types of things should go together. What else?
I think, yeah, we're excited to move blocks around. I would say for the people online, this is a hard activity to replicate. So we do have an online survey for you to participate in the design priorities and write that. The city will post that to the Zoom meeting here shortly.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Okay, so each of us will join the table and we'll start it.
Yeah.
During my skate,
terms of what it's.
Yeah, no, that's why, I would say. Right.
20 feet for to go over here. In my
Well, that's something that we should explore. Yeah. That could be a temporary.
So Chad, how many toilets do we have right now? Are these drain field?
In the fire station,
Oh,
two from the city hall, one for the fire station.
two, you don't. Yep. Not, yeah, so in the future state, that would be, 5 restaurants. You know that the drain. No, there's potential opportunity. Anywhere on site, but yeah. That's public,
No.
it's private, but there's some speculation that there could be something here, so don't want to get too lost in that. This is.
But this little side area is kind of what you're looking at. That is extra.
Fire station.
Fire station going during the process, you just build around it and then take down a wall, or whatever, if you need. It's going to be larger.
Right, yeah, so again, in terms of cost, like the individual that was here, like, he makes a great point, it's not fire damage on the fire station there, but in terms of cost efficiency, to not do a temporary structure.
Right. It's gonna take longer, well, but that's, you know what I mean, and you keep, wouldn't it be quicker to do it, like George was saying, doing it off? Not doing this.
Yeah, because ultimately at the end of the project, you got the fire station here, you're gonna build the fire station somewhere else, right? And then when it's done, that's gonna serve as the
I know,
fire
but
station.
to do it that way, it
Demo.
takes longer than
It
just
could.
raising
Yeah.
and building afresh.
You're not wrong.
Absolutely
You're
true.
not wrong.
So has this been, that a potential possibility?
Everything is a potential possibility.
Okay, so, and you said this might be a possibility too.
That's correct. That we get acquired the land. It's currently owned by Howard.
How much is that?
Not,
Okay,
but it's certainly a cost that needs to be. No, just like anything else.
Quiet piece of land functions.
No, yeah. From what we know, it's. Nothing else that's in there. We have to sell it to us. And then remember. Right, but this, they're part of the.
Keep more of a box rather than.
from the front.
We can't waste any space right here. Make it whole, like, that might be a good spot for your future drain here.
You put this right behind.
It's like. It works, it's just the stream.
I think it's put a big map. I think it's that rebuild on the same site. You got to turn. Well. So can you build public work, what's the equipment, build all final, put all this here in it.
Both side of it. Units are shared between police and fire.
Bad idea for making.
I think that's sort of up for grabs, right? Challenges and setbacks are so much that you don't have a whole lot to work with. So it could be. It could be potential parking. Something like that. Okay. Some.
Okay, on 200,000. How would you say, Karen, 200,000? Are we?
What's that? We don't know yet. That or below.
If you did this, could you build a whole building to house? Short term, you have a drain field and then a back. Even use that.
Possibility of incorporating this into the site.
Well, that's what they attempted to do in 2007. And it went down pretty quickly. I agree. And I think that you should fix it. Just not sure what the costs are going to be.
There any idea?
What's that? There's, I think I see a couple people for that. They're busy working and putting together their families, you know, it's.
This was 15,000 square feet.
Yeah, it looks like it.
The one that we're building that went down was 15,000 square feet.
Yes, sir.
These things that they are looking at, with the exception of the weight room, are included in what they call the Taj Mahal.
Yes.
How are you going to, and they wanted to build all this for $5 million. That was like over each scale.
Yeah.
It's gonna be.
how they build it for 5 million or 10 million, and it's probably gonna be.
I don't think it's possible, and I don't think that people really understand what the expenses are. I think he's kind of gone back on that a little bit. Yeah, yeah.
He's here, he's taking part of the process, that's one step, right?
Yeah. I'm glad to have fire and police. Oh, what they.
Yeah, we listened, you know, when we got our butts kicked hard, right? We learned some things. We learned that we needed a public process to go through there and have everybody be a part of it to help us solve these issues. We're gonna keep working on it though. We'll see. We'll see. It's.
Wish. So. Yeah.
Okay. Gonna take some pictures of another table here.
I literally. Out. What is?
That's 5 years.
I don't know. Maybe. Hey, Catherine, how you doing?
Yeah, I think this picking your ass out. I'm sorry.
If I'm not in my office, I'm not spending money. That's brilliant. Thanks. I'm easy. I don't even like the office that much. I like to be around with you folks. Nothing.
Build the temporary. And then. Temporary for the fire equipment there. These guys probably to a remote location for a year. Yeah. Which would say.
Well, the vehicles do need to be inside. We've got all the medical equipment and things like that.
We're talking the temporary structure here for the fire department vehicles. Public works vehicles somewhere, do they need to be inside as well?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Eventually, long term, yes. I mean, we want to get our Vector trailer and our tractor out of the weather and that sort of
Is
thing.
that included in these things?
That is the public works phase right there.
Okay.
So, you know, one idea is to tear down the public works area, rebuild their bays, move the fire station into the public works area, temporarily rebuild all this. You know, it's a bit of a push and pull, but it's a possibility. Just throwing it out there. We haven't decided on anything. Yeah. Moving around an old building to build a new one. Yeah, I agree with you there.
Okay. Probably be
Well, the biggest problem if you keep this, and then you don't do bays, it almost requires something up against the tree. You really don't have a choice. You have to have that. Yes.
Could potentially have it that farther back. And then one scenario, like this is the minimum. Maybe, but you could set them back farther. That's one idea. But yeah, like in this scenario right here, you're kind of building somewhere, not right here.
If you could rip the back of this out,
Yeah.
you frankly, you could build it like that.
Yeah.
It drives through.
Temporary public work, right?
You're gonna have to do some demolition somewhere sometime.
Basically, then take that out. But now you get it. That in reality, not that far.
Right.
So, yeah.
Kind of someone doing the.
Then you have very close to what we had before. You're just back up against maybe not the easement.
The program. I'm guessing some things need to be right next to each other, like
Yes.
fire. Is probably one of them.
I mean, it's with such a, with a lot going on in a small footprint, it would be smart to, yeah, because we want to be able to access, here's the main thing. Yeah, this public lobby, right? So somehow, in my mind, we would need to be able to have access where officers, whether it be fire or police, can come and speak to the public where they come in. And so we don't want to be, so this is good. We don't want to be way over here, we want to be here. So yeah, there's no things to be near each other. So the stairs should probably be located near that too, so that we can get down to the lobby. And when you have stuff like this would all inside the police department, right? So we're gonna want to park somewhere near the PD. Because some of this would be covered like that. So you figure we have covered storage next to us. We can put this here. Boom. And then we'll put trash recycling over here.
So that's a good.
Oh, it's always like this.
Thanks.
Well, I guess that would be more expensive than the public one. But
How much lobby?
doesn't this have to be on the first
Fire
floor?
administrative.
Well, I would imagine, don't they have
The back.
machinery and stuff?
Yeah, so it'd be on the first floor, the
Yeah.
back.
You're right.
And what about the police being up there? But this is,
No. You got a nice kitchen?
Well, it's.
It's all 10:59. Because it seems to make more sense. Oh, no, so it's not.
Take another idea. What different, what else would you do to this area? Take advantage of temporarily.
Yes. What about some drainage?
So that can be, doesn't have to be somewhere off site.
Somewhere on site.
So there could be a lobby here, if you think about use of space. There could be other program that's put over. Right. Like that.
So that can go somewhere else, like.
Right. Okay, well, it would have to be somewhere within the right zone.
But to go back. Yeah.
So the drain field doesn't have to do obey the setbacks.
The drain field, I don't know, I don't think you can have it with, it has to be within your property line, but your drain field could be within the setback, right? It's just a dimension from your property line.
Yes, but there is also a setback for drain fields off of property line,
Yeah.
which I think is
Like
10 feet. Yeah,
Right. So now there's, if you have your fire out, pull that one out, just stretch across the site. Right, so now it doesn't have to be a two-story building, it can be a little bit wider of a building.
yeah, in Deer Heart, part of the code is you cannot have a building, a house over 30 feet tall.
So
It's not up to me, it would be up to the planning commission and the city council, but yeah, there's a possibility. Yeah, yeah. The government. We're here to help.
So the other thing about this apron. So that's all the functions of the, or all the users of the user. So that's breaker. Right.
And Public Works. Oh, get rid of them.
Our department doesn't have to get it. Temporarily, no.
Our second scheme that we're looking at.
Yeah. Andy wants to get some of the up in Gin Ridge to kick in big time. And
If we give them a good product, they would be willing to do that, I bet.
they're not voters. And so they're not gonna be able to influence it by voting,
No, but
but they can influence by saying, you went to the bond, raised the bond, fill the bond and said, we've already got X million dollars. People who have agreed to do this. I think it would make people feel better about it.
And there's some people in that group of folks who said the same thing. You get a plan, you get the community behind it, then we'll come in as well.
Because they have a vested interest in having.
They love this town.
Firefighting.
They love this town.
And ambulance. And
Yeah, and they're moving here more often. You know, and they're spending more and more
look at
time.
Los Angeles. And they can say, we don't want that to happen up there in Jubilee. And we've got a fantastic fire department. I think people realize that. The more I learn about it, the more I realize, my God. Open up, you know, volunteers.
Yeah.
Fantastic. He made a good point. It was interesting. They love what they do. Well, you love what you do.
It's a sickness.
I mean,
You want to,
that's it.
those type of people that rush in to help, you know, somebody
Right.
falls down,
Yeah.
you know, like you.
Yeah.
You see these people rush in to help out, the rest of them stand back, and I get it.
Yeah.
Right? They don't know what to do.
Yeah,
These are all people that rush in.
right. Well, people, I heard that repeatedly interviewing Los Angeles people saying, we were all running out and the fire department was running in. And for some with 9/11, said the fire department.
Yeah, I'm gonna go get some of these other tables.
We're gonna have to do a whole new drain field, huh? Can't build on top of the drain field.
They got a whole lot of smacking. Really, they go more than just. With that, I think you'll find.
Worry about for police being down would be police parking, vehicle processing, and then, covered storage, the property, the town property. You could think of that, they really, we could bring what we need to, those things.
Thanks for being a.
Yeah, or however, police admin. Support.
Are you intern or something?
I'm not
One of our best responders.
And we'll have.
I go to as many.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah. Yeah, just I did the stairs. Yeah, you can just figure they're gonna right up. Spot for the elevator inside.
You'll learn how to think, hey, if you're putting, that's what you should.
I mean, yeah, because what, your fire hose tower will have the stairs there. Yeah, yep, I can do that. So now, just correct me if I'm wrong, but you're thinking, okay, build all this, now tear this out, and then. Paper is there, yep. I like it.
Oh, I see.
You're.
Took me a minute to.
What's that?
Took me a minute as well.
Yeah.
I was like, but what about the?
Yeah, I thought they were saying to keep the old building. I'm like, what? Hey, I got.
Temperature. Out. That evening. Yes. So I'll go back seaside. Seaside. Right, so like, what I heard is that public works had an area across where you park their apparatus. But some of their apparatus. Some of their rigs.
Okay.
And it was summer, and it was nice, so you're not having the freezing issue. Yeah. So anyway, I'm just showing you, that's a scheme potentially that you could. Where's that? So it's that idea, it's City Hall. What's left in there are just two offices. So council chambers. This was increased in size. Included in that for the additional square footage of official programs, probably be something along. You know, what do you mean by the council chamber? So when you've been replacing them much smaller. But
And then ideally, maybe you still keep the alleyway. This thing's a little funky.
I mean,
That would put the city, yeah, the public works. Maybe as a, that be their space to the earth.
oh, you.
Do the fire hall, do something.
You could separate public works in this way, so the fire station and the police have to be built to a higher seismic standard. Than the standard. A little bit of saving. Between that.
You just knocked out City Hall and built it into the whole building. Here, I was inspired by those pictures you showed.
They have a fire.
You know, is this anything that you?
No, I'm good.
So I can talk.
Oh, sure.
So I know historically what happened was 06, right? I mean, that's the idea of crashed and burned.
Yeah.
So has that idea been suggested in the last year? Just got suggested tonight.
We figured it might.
Oh, yeah, were you hoping that was what we?
No, I mean, I don't know. We're
All right.
just looking for good ideas.
Right,
We didn't have any
right,
pre-plan. We knew we wanted to get the community involved in helping us figure this out.
So.
And I think that initially is that the community thought that by us removing the city hall, it'd be much more expensive and bigger than what we thought.
Right.
So we were trying to stick with city hall remaining and remodel that.
Right.
But it's turning out from what I'm hearing is
Right.
that
Right.
try to build around another building.
Right.
It's making it more expensive, but
In addition, if you have to push the building, here are some of the other things. A little further back than you otherwise necessarily would, because this building already in place, you conceivably may be losing out on work. Public works have to go over on the property and have to buy. So you have to figure in that cost so that you don't have to spend. Furthermore, the police station comes off of City Hall. Well, okay, so now you got to remodel City Hall. There's a cost you've got in
Yeah.
there. And furthermore, the chambers all could be done in the public multi-purpose room anyway. So that's a cost sharing right there. All that's left of City Hall is your office and the staff's office. And that's no more expensive than taking it down and building one full. Especially if you don't have to buy the PG&E property. So you can, I suggested Ian, I asked him, what are the two, what kinds of two options might you offer if you're both on one property? He said, well, we have to decide. Well, one option could be build it around this building existing and show what that is. And what it costs to remodel City Hall. And the second option is what if we build one building entirely?
Oh, well, I
City
just,
Hall.
I just got myself up here.
It might be cheaper,
Made it.
or it's not much more expensive.
See, yours looks very much.
And maybe easier too, without having to.
I don't know, it
downhill.
looks like. it.
yeah, a lot of challenges.
Good.
I'm gonna go home and have a.
Well, that's what we needed.
Yeah, I was surprised there weren't more folks here.
We had about 25 online and about 30 in here.
I was surprised there weren't more people.
Yeah. For a small community like this, it's not terrible.
Oh, no, just go face.
Okay, I'm gonna get some more pictures of these other ones.
But, we'll see how people react. I think. Yeah, but, you got to show. All right, we're gonna wrap it up. Sorry. Thank you. So as we wind down this exercise, I'm gonna ask one person from each table just to talk about the. Hello? I'm gonna ask one person from each table to talk about kind of the opportunities and the challenges they found just by going through the exercise. So starting here, you guys wanna talk about what you learned through the process? Anyone? You guys working with that close. What do you think? Was it an easy exercise?
It's hard dealing with small space.
No, not easy.
Certainly.
Did you find any opportunities within it?
2 levels.
2 levels, okay?
Yeah.
So 2 stories seems like a given.
And
not
maybe
a given,
three.
It's essential, right?
There's no way to get around it.
Yes, right. Was it easy to get the phasing done?
No.
Here, how about that table?
Well, our basic conclusion is that we feel like City Hall should go away and be part of the overall project. That we, to salvage this building, to store the equipment while the new structure goes up, City Hall has to go away. And then we're hoping you guys can say, we can add to the overall, your block system.
Right.
We could add one more block of X size, and that would be City Hall. And then when the costs come up, that's
Right.
$1 million or $5 million or whatever you tell us.
One shared lobby for all 3, sir.
Right.
Also, city council chambers can be done in the multi-purpose room.
Yeah.
Also, the police department is going away from that building anyways.
One thing would be cool to have an iconic like fire tower. This is the look of Gearhart.
Right. Fire tower / clock tower.
Yeah.
How about this group?
We had the same thought about something has to go away and rebuild more inclusive with City Hall. I'll throw him under the bus. We originally thought the fire station needed to go too, but a good designer could figure a way out how to keep it. And
Through construction.
yeah.
Yeah.
And build around it. And I didn't think that was practical, so it was demonstrated.
Sure. Okay, how about that group?
Say that again, Bill, I didn't quite know.
That there is a way they can keep this building and build around it and then tear it down.
Yeah.
And, but
Right.
the whole issue is what do you do with the equipment during construction?
Right.
And, there is a way that they can keep the building, build around it and then tear this down. And that becomes the approach to this actually becomes the apron to the fire station.
But we also talked about building a pole barn or something to house the equipment in the meantime.
On the other parts of it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that you didn't have to build around.
How about you guys?
We had talked about 2 different schemes where, where there's always
fire trucks that are available to be used.
Yeah.
One would be in the old building, another one would be to build the public works garage first.
Mhm.
And then when you work on the main site, you can house your fire trucks in there temporarily and then work on them.
Where did you put the public works when you did that?
On the, not inside the white box, but on the other side.
On the other side.
We thought it would make sense to try and procure this property from the electric company and see if there's a way we can build that big enough to house the apparatus. That solves the problem, because I think there's consensus over here that to try and build around this is going to cost is good money after bad.
Right.
Bad money after good, but to actually spend $16-18 million on a fire station and then have to build around this. And of course, we don't know what's underneath. Just seems prohibitive. And there was a big question about whether to keep City Hall. And that has been discussed at length, you know, trying to make that, have a multi-purpose space that we could use temporarily for that. Or maybe incorporate it into the fire stations.
How about you guys?
The bad part of going last, what they said. We really did two alternatives. One was demolishing this existing space.
Yeah.
Building, you know, traditionally, like they said, everything seems, 2 stories seems a given to get everything required on the space, but it would have probably required this electric spot. And then we came up in the end of keeping this for storage while it's being constructed, building behind it, then demolishing it, it becomes the apron. And then same thing, incorporating the city hall elements into the new construction, like Eric pointed out, police and fire disappear. Redo the multi-purpose rooms, reception probably is in the lobby, so very similar to what we can say. Brent, leave anything out?
The drain field.
Yeah, it was a lot easier if you didn't have to have septic fields.
There's that. All right, as our responsibility or is to walk away from this and mock up several of these things that you've talked about. And in the next community meeting, and correct me, John, if I'm wrong in this, is that we're gonna come back to it as a group and review the pros and cons of each of the options and come down to just 2, right?
Yeah, we're gonna start the meeting with a wide range.
Right.
And the goal is to work through and kind of find the 2 that best make the most logical sense for development.
Okay.
And the second activity that is gonna help with that meeting is we're gonna basically have all the options, but we want them to be viewed through your priorities. And helping us rank the priorities in kind of 1 to 8 order. So I'm gonna hand everyone a activity sheet. And then there's pencils up there and you can turn them in up at the front, and then the list of priorities are also up on that board with a little bit of description of how we interpret them as architects and will use them. But this will definitely help the conversation that we find one to hit the most. And then I'll add to, feedback to us is really important. And so there is a feedback survey of that event, and you can put it on your way out or fill out. Fill out a hard copy, but there's a survey on your way out that will help us. So I'll say, we've got a couple of those papers. Yeah, already. Rocket.
Yeah, sure.
And then after that, are we finished? Okay. And then, yeah. Part of that.
I think it's.
As you were going through your priorities, we did forget to mention that we have put up on one of the boards up here, comparable projects. You could ask to look at costs of other facilities.
And there's one down.
We gathered some projects, things that we have heard from the community or projects that we know about on the coast. And we're in the process of getting cost information about them, trying to escalate it to today's dollars, with those across multiple timescales. Two of the projects out there that the community has asked us to look at are, I think it's the Lincoln City and the Waco Fire Station.
I don't know where anything.
Both of those just like the government, they were not new facilities, so the dollars are a little bit off here. So we're still doing our research on that, we'll bring more back to you at the next community meeting.
Okay. And that's why I need.